beautiful for the only Ghostbusters.
Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn. Before we get to today's deck, I just want to really give a shout out to those people who have been early adopters of the Patreon. For those of you who don't know, I will link a video up above that explains the situation, but basically I was in a terrible financial situation. In order to keep the channel moving forward, I needed to start the Patreon, and some early adopter patrons really jumped to my rescue and made it so that the channel can continue to push forward. We actually already met our goal so that we have enough money to get the new CPU that I needed in order to make sure my computer was going to be 100% functional moving forward because of some awful hardware failures. But again, check out that video that I linked above in that card because that explains the whole thing and what our plans are moving forward. But I haven't yet finished. I have a video I'm working on that we're going to add as an end credits to all of the videos where we shout out all of those patrons, and that should be coming by June 1st, the latest. But for now, I at least wanted to shout everybody out just as a special thank you to those early adopters. So Yuck Fuzi, Noah Vincent, Bob Steele, Brittany, and especially the one and only Terrence Rohrbach. You guys have been amazing. Terrence in particular really went out of his way to sub at a high tier to make sure we could get that CPU taken care of and get the channel back online. So thank you so much to you guys. If you guys haven't checked out the Patreon yet, I urge you to check it out. I'm going to link it in a card above right now. I'm also going to put it in the info section below. Even if you don't subscribe, I would really like some feedback. I'm very new to trying to figure out what works, what I should do, what seems like fair pricing, all of that. So if you guys could check it out, give me some feedback, let me know what you think about the tiers, maybe some things that I could offer that I haven't thought of, or maybe some pricing restructures if you think the pricing could be better, that kind of thing. Really, all of your feedback is going to help me right now because it's brand new, undiscovered territory for me, and I want to make sure we do it right. But to those early adopters on the Patreon, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you guys, I don't know where this channel would be going moving forward. But because of you, we are full-time. We are moving full steam ahead. And that brings us to today's deck, which is called SUPERGEIST. Now, this is built around a sort of Sultai shell that is dependent upon kind of an engine that fuels Willow Geist. Now, this isn't something new. This is something that was slightly popular about a year ago, briefly. But this new build has been utilizing cards that have come out in March of the Machine and that have come out in even Aftermath. And I really think this version is super interesting, and I haven't seen anybody else play it. And it really just has a ton of synergy and really gets there. It can race aggro because it has so much life gain built in, while also just building up these big creatures out of nowhere very quickly. It can keep pace with mid-range pretty well, and it has enough extra value it can accrue in little ways that you wouldn't necessarily see coming, that it can even sort of go toe-to-toe with control. So I think the deck's pretty cool. I think it'll only get better as we see the card pool get bigger. But I'm really loving it. Before we get to the deck, make sure you like if you haven't so that this video can get out to as many people as possible. I would really appreciate that, especially if you can't sub on the Patreon. Like, just a like will go a long way and will mean a lot to me. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any of my deck techs, and let's get on with it. Alright, so I'm loving the shell of this deck, and I think there's a lot of potential here. Let's start at the bottom of the curve and work our way up. First of all, we have Willow Geist. Now, the whole deck is built around this card. 1 green mana for a 1/1 with trample, and whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and then when it dies, you gain life equal to its power. So the idea is almost everything in our deck is either putting stuff in our yard or taking it out of our yard, or both. So the Willow Geist can actually get really big really quick, and then even if they kill it, we gain a bunch of life. So if we're contending with an aggro deck, the life gain just lets us get so far ahead that they can't catch up. And if we're not, we can just use this in an aggressive way to beat down our opponent as quickly as possible. Now, we're also using Deathbonnet Sprout with it. Now, this has been paired with Willow Geist since the moment the cards came out. This is a 1/1 at the beginning of your upkeep. You mill a card, and then if 3 or more creature cards are in your graveyard, you transform the Deathbonnet Sprout. Becomes a Deathbonnet Hulk, which is a 3/3. And from that point on, every upkeep you get to exile a card from a graveyard, any graveyard. And if that card is a creature card, then you put a +1/+1 counter on the Deathbonnet Hulk. So the idea here is the Sprout's going to keep milling things and eventually get to start exiling things, which is not only going to put counters on the Hulk itself, but also counters on the Geist. And everything else in the deck is supporting that idea. We've got 2 Ichor Drinkers, which is a new card from March of the Machine. This is a 1/1 lifelink. Again, works pretty well against aggro, because if they have to use removal against it, then it's not a good card. It's not good value for them to use their removal against. So that's a win for us, because then we can just pay 1 when it's in the graveyard to incubate 2 and get a 2/2. So it's a lot of value against them if they use their removal. If they don't, even if we just chump block with this and gain a life, that's going to be really good against mono red and any other kind of aggro. We can also use it later in the game for certain sacrifice effects, which we'll get to later. And then we also have Seed of Hope. Now, this is an especially good card that came out in March of the Machine, and I think a lot of people just don't even see the potential of this card. 1 green mana for an instant, mill 2 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. You gain 2 life. For a deck that is entirely, or at least almost entirely, permanents, this is essentially like an opt with upside. It's an opt, except it's better than an opt because it also puts stuff into your graveyard for you to potentially use graveyard synergies, and it gains you 2 life. And in every other way, it is strictly better than an opt as long as you're only using permanents. And other than Seed of Hope and just 1 copy of one other card, everything in this deck is permanents. So this card is just extremely, it's just gas, guys. And it works super well, too, with the Willow Geist, because when we take that card from our graveyard and put it into our hand, we trigger the Willow Geist and put a counter on it. That is so much for 1 mana. Not only that, it can help us dig to find our land if we're missing our land drops. So it just does so much to make this deck function at such a consistent level. Amazing card. Moving on to the 2-drop slots, we have 3 Tenacious Underdogs. 3/2 for 2, you can blitz it for 4 and 2 life. But what's important to note is that when we blitz Underdog from the graveyard, we're going to trigger that Willow Geist and we're going to put a counter on it. So we get all this extra value off of Underdog in this deck because of that. We've got just 3 because we want to try to get to 1 as quick as we can, especially maybe milling 1 into our graveyard so that we kind of get that extra value of being able to play it from the graveyard without having to draw it, which is nice. But we don't really need multiple copies, so 3 seems like it's right. We've also got 4 Armored Scrapgorger, which was a new card from Phyrexia All Will Be One that makes this deck really sing. 0/3, tap for a mana of any color, exiles a card from a graveyard when you do, and puts an oil counter on it. When it gets to 3 oil counters, it becomes a 3/3. So not only is this going to ramp us and fix us, and become a 3/3 threat for only 2 mana, but it's exiling cards every time it's tapped, which means we can choose to exile something from our own yard and again grow Willow Geist, which just gets kind of nutty. We've also got 4 Teachings of the Kirin, because it just fits the themes of the deck so well and gives us so much value for just 1 card. 2 mana, it's going to mill us 3 cards, set us up for our cards that get stuff out of the yard, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. Then when it goes to chapter 2, it'll put a counter on something, so maybe we make our Willow Geist that much bigger, and then we can trample through for that much more, gain more life when it dies, or maybe we just use it to make one of our 1/1s into a 2/2 and get some extra value that way. Chapter 3, it gets exiled, comes back as the Kirin Touched Oroki, and that's a 1/1. Whenever it attacks, we get to exile a creature or a non-creature, and if it's a creature, we make a 1/1 spirit, and if it's a non-creature, we put a counter on something. So we get another permanent that can attack, exile things on command, and generate us extra value, but then when exiling things, it's also going to grow the Geist. So you're seeing a trend here. Everything just makes this Geist huge. We force our opponent into a situation where they have to waste their removal on just our 1-drop, and then everything else that we've played isn't being contended with that turn, and we can kind of just roll over with value. And if they don't have the removal for the Geist, it's really hard for them to come back at all. Moving on to our 3-drop slot, we have 1 Slogurk, the Overslime. We have a lot of things in this deck that are self-milling. Because of that, this 3/3 Trampler is going to get +1/+1 counters all the time. Whenever a land is put into our graveyard from anywhere, that could be one of the channel lands, of which we have 1 each, Takenuma, Otawara, and Boseiju. If we channel them, it'll get a counter. If we mill them with any of the aforementioned cards, it'll get counters. And if it happens to go from the graveyard as well, we could also get a counter. But there's a lot of milling, and that's mainly what's going to put all the counters on this. And then we can remove 3 counters from it to return it to its owner's hand. When it leaves the battlefield, you can return up to 3 lands from your graveyard to your hand, and that will trigger the Willow Geist because those things leave the graveyard and again put a counter on. So everything's really synergistic. The rest of our 3-drop slot are some key standout cards that I really want to go over in depth. First of which is a new card from March of the Machine called Invasion of Amonkhet. You guys know this. You've seen it around everywhere. It's a ton of value as long as you can set yourself up to afford to take the turn sort of off in order to get that value. This is a 4 shield counter invasion for 3 mana in the colors of Mire. When it enters, each player mills 3 cards, and then each opponent discards a card and you draw a card. So not only do you get to self-mill yourself 3 to set yourself up better for what the deck's trying to do, they have to discard 1, you get to draw 1, which means it's an automatic 2-for-1, and you actually get them to mill some stuff as well, and there are some silver lining situations in which you might want more options in their graveyard to hit as well, and that brings us to the flip side of this. If we can swing in with a big Willow Geist because it has trample and they don't have a good blocker, we can almost guarantee that we get to flip this thing. Comes in as a 4/4 Lazotep convert, and we get to copy anything we want. So we can either copy our opponent's best creature, maybe they milled an Atali or discarded one or whatever the case may be, and we get to copy an Atali, which is insane. But we can also copy our own stuff, and that's pretty good too. If we can just copy a Willow Geist, all of a sudden we have a 4/4 Willow Geist with trample that still gets counters when things are exiled, that still gives us life when it dies, and that can get kind of absurd. Or if we're desperate for life against aggro, we make a 4/4 lifelink by copying an Ichor Drinker. There's a lot of different things we can do with this Invasion of Amonkhet, and I think it's just such a great fit for a deck like this. Moving on, we've got a new card from Aftermath. This is Urborg Scavengers, 1 black and 2 for a 2/2 spirit. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to exile any card from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on the Urborg Scavengers, and then it gets any keyword abilities that were on that card that you exiled if it was a creature. So what's really cool with this, if we happen to mill or make our opponent discard or just maybe kill one of our opponent's haste creatures, we can actually bring Urborg Scavengers in, exile their haste creature, it gains haste, and then we immediately swing, exile something else before they even declare blockers, and this thing's a 4/4 before they even get to block. It's got haste, and it's got potentially other keyword abilities, like maybe trample from the Willow Geist, or maybe reach from our Skyfisher Spider, which I'll get to in just a moment. Very good card. It's hard to fit as many as I'd like to in this deck. I'm going with just 1 for now because there's so many good cards that we're trying to fit in, especially in the 3-drop slot. But we gotta play with at least the 1 because it's really synergistic with what the deck's doing, and it's worth exploring. We've also got 3 Tyvar Jubilant Brawler, and this card in this deck is absurd. So first of all, whenever it's in play, our creatures with tap abilities can use them, which means our Scrapgorger can tap for mana and exile a card the turn it comes into play, which is pretty nutty. Also, if our Invasion of Amonkhet copies something of the opponent's that has a tap ability, we can use that right away, which is also really cool. But the +1 ability lets us untap something and use it again. So maybe we use the Scrapgorger twice, or maybe we swing in with an 8/8 Willow Geist, and then afterwards we get to untap it and keep it on blocks, and then force them to have to remove it, and then we gain 8 life when they remove it, and they can't possibly keep up with it. There's just so much we can do with Tyvar, but the -2 is where it really takes the cake. Not only are we getting something with mana value 2 or less back from our graveyard onto the battlefield immediately, which could be a Scrapgorger that we could also use immediately, or it could be a Willow Geist that they killed earlier in the game, but in the process of, we're also milling 3 cards, which is just adding even more to all of the synergies that we're trying to utilize in the deck. This card is just nutty, and it puts in so much work the turn it comes down, it almost doesn't matter if they kill it afterwards, but if it does manage to stick around and generate extra value, it's very hard for our opponent to ever come back from that. Moving on to the 4-drop slot, we have 4 Skyfisher Spider. Now, Skyfisher Spider is a perfect addition to this deck. 3/3 reach for 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you can choose to sacrifice any other creature, and when you do, you get to destroy any non-land permanent. And that's really good on its own. We can sack things like an Underdog that we want to start blitzing anyway to put more counters on a Geist, or an Ichor Drinker that we're eventually just going to exile from our yard anyway in order to incubate. Or this Teachings of the Kirin, if it's making creature tokens, 1/1 spirits, we could just sacrifice those to destroy any non-land permanent. So this card already sort of slots in perfectly, especially when you consider we want to keep our creature count as high as possible and our non-creature count as low as possible, specifically because we have the Deathbonnet Sprout here, who wants to hit 3 creatures in the yard so that it can flip. And because of that, we have to be very, very careful with how many non-creatures we add to the deck. So being able to slot in our removal in a creature slot is very important in order to keep the numbers right for those synergies to go off early enough. But what really puts this card over the edge in a deck like this is the last line of text. When Skyfisher Spider dies, you may gain 1 life for each creature card in your graveyard. If you do, you exile Skyfisher Spider from your graveyard. So not only do you kill anything, and then have a 3/3 reach that can trade with their flyer, or block their flyer, or force them to use their removal, but when they do, you gain a ton of life off it, which is amazing against aggro, and when you do that, it gets exiled from your graveyard in the process, which means it's another free trigger to make the Willow Geist bigger. It's just perfect in this deck. We've also got 1 copy of Ertai so that we have another creature that can act as removal, but in a pinch, and you'll see this in one of the games, it can also counter a spell and make sure we just close out the game when we need to, which is really nice. And it gives us a body. We could sacrifice the body if we wanted to, the Skyfisher Spider later. Very versatile card. It's legendary, so I'm good with sticking to just 1. And then we have just 1 copy of Pile-On, because at instant speed with Convoke, this can be very useful for taking out a problematic Shelly or a Planeswalker or whatever. We can Convoke it by tapping our creatures so that they don't see it coming. And we get to Surveil too, which in this deck makes Pile-On better than it would be in other decks, because we want specific things in our yard. So being able to set up our draw, put what we need in the yard, and kill whatever we want for potentially 0 mana works really well in this deck. I don't dare put more than 1 because we need to keep our creature count high, but I think just the 1 is really worth adding. So that's pretty much the deck. We had to be very careful with the mana base. We don't have a Triome available to us in Sultai, so we do have 1 of each of the Kamigawa channel lands, 3 Darkslick Shores, 4 Deathcap Glades, 4 Llanowar Wastes, Dreamroot Cascade, 3 Yavimaya Coast, and just 1 Mirix, because if we're up against control, sometimes we can get into a situation where we can just make a 1/1 every turn and force them to deal with our board state without losing card advantage out of our hand, and that can be enough. So I think it's worth the inclusion. And that's the deck. The games are fun. We'll just put it that way. But I won't drag it out any longer. Let's check them out. This looks fine. We can turn 2 Scrapgorger. Turn 3, we have our pick of things. We will start with the Deathcap Glade, since we know we want green. next turn, preferably from a non-pain source. And black is the most prevalent among our other colors, so... Well, that changes things. No, it doesn't. We still want to be able to play the Scrapgorger on 2 no matter what. We don't need the Willow Geist in play until we start to exile things from our yard. Two islands. How predictable. Well, we'll try and play the Scrapgorger. We will try. He will make disappear it. Sounds good. Down to 4 cards in hand. Play a Geist. We will play another Geist. We will pass the turn. He's going to Impulse. We're going to save this Seed of Hope for his turn. Because if we can get him to counter it, or maybe try to bounce one of our creatures on his turn in particular, that might be better. Haughty Djinn lands. It's probably got a counterspell. Let's see. I mean, I want to Tyvar. If he lets the Tyvar through, it would be really strong. But I have to assume he's going to counterspell it, right? So let's try to land our cheap stuff. Start out with the Sprout. Goes right through. We'll go Teachings, see if we get a counterspell there. Okay, he's going to negate it. He's running out of gas, so that's a plus on our side. But we need to race that Haughty Djinn. Which, I mean, should be able to do. Within reason. Alright, another Deathbonnet Sprout. If I make him discard a card, he's probably just going to counter it, right? We can only play one of these. Unless we land the Tyvar, in which case we can bring back the Mana Dude, grow our guys, and play something else potentially. I guess this has the biggest payoff if it actually resolves. They all cost the same and they all have the same chance of being countered here.
This fight for centuries. I won't let you fall.
Scrapgorger. Thirst for discovery. Sure. Discards the basic. We cannot swing into that 5/5. We can eat something at instant speed, though, and double block the Terror. Which sounds pretty reasonable to me. Flow of knowledge, oh god. Well, that made things very tricky. We're probably not resolving anything for the rest of the game. So hopefully our board state can get it done. We're going to hit something from our graveyard. We'll go with the Seed of Hope. Grow our Geisty boys. Alright. We'll go black. Exile something from our own graveyard. Seed of Hope. And then we will uptick to untap the Scrapgorger. And then we will play Skyfisher Spider. And have 2 mana available so that if he has specifically Make Disappear, he'll have to sacrifice his Tolarian Terror. We will exile another Seed of Hope. And we will sack the Deathbonnet Sprout to pop the Haughty Djinn. And we will swing for 12. I think we actually win next turn. Through clever use of Tyvar, we were able to have enough mana to get through and get rid of that Djinn. We have a blocker on board. If it dies, we gain life. There's a possibility he could bounce the Spider, but I don't think he can bounce the Spider and get the Tolarian Terror to do an extra 2 points of damage to us in the same turn. So we got him. This one we can keep. Actually think the Underdog is best to toss back here. Start with the Glade. We'll go Sprout and Geist. Oh, maybe we'll Scrapgorger. Yeah, I think we'll Scrapgorger. Play the Geist. Play another Scrapgorger. Pass turn. Kami of Whisper Hopes. No blocks. Alright. Play the Geist. Play Teachings. Get some stuff in the yard. Then we'll go Deathbonnet Sprout. Exile a land. Trigger our Geisty boys. And we will pass the turn. We can block with our Geists and then exile a card to turn them into 3/3s if we want. Back up 1 on the Kami. Interesting. Thrill Seeker. Even more interesting. Pass to attacks. Swings with just the 6/6, and then he can sack it to do 6 to us. Oh, we'll just chump block. That is fine. Is he gonna kill one of our creatures? No. No, he isn't. We will eat our Deathcap Glade and grow our Geists again. Invasion of Amonkhet. Alright, we'll play it. Grow some more things. Exile Cascade. Exile. I guess we'll do one of the Scrapgorgers. No, we should probably do the Spider, right? We have no way of getting the Spider back, so. Alright, big ol' Geists. No attacks. Pretty good shape. I mean, he's in better shape. But if we can survive, we should be okay. Another throw seeker. So he's going to be able to kill one of those Geists. Just that. Okay. So instead, he's gonna do that. I gotta admit, it is a pretty sick card. Or a pretty sick deck that he has there. Guys are just too big. We can't get through to hit the Invasion of Amonkhet. They could both be 9/9 swinging, but that just wouldn't be enough. That just wouldn't be enough. So I think we just gotta pass the turn. I'd like to play this Darkslick Shores now, but I don't think we're gonna have. I don't think we have the luxury, because we really need to bluff that we have something in our hand. My turn. We'll get rid of teachings. I want to make sure we keep our creatures. And we'll hit a land. Big ol' Geisties. Alright, we're going to get rid of one of the Scrapgorgers in our yard. That should grow everything. Let's see, we got another Deathbonnet Sprout. What's he doing? He's going to kill the Kirin touched Orochi. He scooped? Okay. Thanks for the shitty hand, Mulligan. Thanks for the even shittier hand, Mulligan. Sure, I'll keep this. Phoenix chick, sure. Play a Sprout. Play the Scrapgorger. Swing one. Because we can. Should be able to play the Geist and the Tyvar next turn. No blocks. We will eat our own teachings. Throw our Geist. -2.
Let's make it a fight to remember. I won't let you fall.
Get back a Scrapgorger. Make it 3/3. Swing 1. End the turn. We can use that Scrapgorger at instant speed as if it didn't have summoning sickness because of Tyvar. So the Willow Geist is actually a 4/4. And our opponent might not realize. Spell Spear. Just comes at me for 4. No blocks. I am fine with that. I am more than fine with that. Play Ichor Drinker. Those Phoenix chicks are going to be a problem, though. So I think we do need to swing. Double block. No, he's not going to double block. Alright, well, we'll hit you. And we'll hit for 5. And then we will uptick.
Ready for round 2.
And end the turn. Still a little tricky with us being at 7, but I think we can get there. Can also get back another Willow Geist with the Tyvar's -2 if we need to. But he can just kill it if he attacks with the Phoenix Chicks. But if he does, then that's basically like us gaining 2 life. We can chump block something with the Ichor Drinker, gain a life there. If anything dies, our Deathbonnet Sprout will flip next turn too. He's just coming in. He just doesn't even care. We've got a Spell Spear with double prowess. Oh, no, it doesn't have double prowess yet, does it? We are going to lose the underdog here if we do this. I think it's worth it. We can exile something if we need to make the Geist a 6/6. So if he's got, say, a Shock or something like that in his hand, that's going to do 2 damage and trigger the prowess on the Spell Spear and make it a 5 damage coming in at the Willow Geist, we can eat one of these. We don't want to if we don't have to, because we want to keep it in the yard for the Sprout. So now the question becomes, do we make the Sprout better or do we gain 1 more life? I think we make the Sprout better. I don't think we're going to need more life. Alright, that actually looks pretty good to me. We'll play Amonkhet. Draw a card. Play the land. Go like this. We'll flip it. And I think we want the reach would be nice. But is the lifelink even nicer? No, we're gonna need the reach. So we'll do that. You know what? Yeah, why not? Exile one of their cards. Turn it into a 3/3. We will uptick to untap the Scrapgorger.
We can do this all day.
And we'll end the turn. Skyfisher Spider is going to shut him down pretty hard. Ichor Drinker still in place, so we can swing and gain life. Is nice. Just start exiling stuff from his yard. Alright, we'll go -2.
We're in this together.
Bring back Willow Geist. Underdog. Because I'm freaking crazy. Ichor Drinker is going to bring us back to where we want to be. We will exile our own Invasion of Amonkhet. He's at 4. We go up to 4. Play you, end the turn, draw a card. So nothing he can top deck can kill us. Actually, a lightning strike and then swinging with both flyers could, but that's the only thing. That would be crazy lucky. He has literally a 1-turn window to draw a very specific card. Yeah, that's not good enough.
This was an unlikely outcome.
We go to 1, and then we kill him. This looks decent. We'll keep it. Not great, but decent. Alright, we'll start with Seed of Hope. Not really anything there for us. Just play the Darkslick Shores, swing 2. Next turn we'll probably just play Slogurk. Unless we draw a 1-drop. Alright, Slogurk it is. Counterspell. Okie dokie. The Spider. Alright, we'll go Deathcap Glade. Invasion of Amonkhet. Another counterspell. Negate. Okay. Swing 2. For 2. Little Teachings of the Kirin. If it makes it through, we still have enough to pile on. Theoretically. Unless he gets rid of one of our creatures. Which is possible. Alright, I guess that's about it then. Put a counter on the Willow Geist. We'll swing. Hit for 5. End the turn. Hold up Pile On. Hold up Mirex. So he will be able to play White Sun's Twilight this turn if he has another land. He does not. He is digging for it, I think. But next turn he's definitely going to do it. So it's really just a matter of, do we have a lethal? We might. We have 6 damage. So very close. Sure. That's a good sign, I think. Sure. Goes to 5. We will crack one of these right now. And do we make a Mirex token? Or do we play the underdog? I think we play the underdog. We end the turn. We can hold up Pile On or drawing a card off the clue. If he plays White Sun's Twilight, we can still blitz the underdog in next turn. Hit him for 3, although he will be at 10 life. Doesn't have it. Silver Scrutiny. I think we might have him. Alright, we'll draw a card. Oh, we got our counterspell, guys. I think this is it. He's not even going to see it coming. We will exile his Silver Scrutiny to put a counter on our 1/1. And when he tries to stop what we're doing, we will Ertai Resurrected. Does he have the counterspell? He might have another union. Nope. We got him. Take that. We can keep this. Seems reasonable. It's a little slow. We don't have any 1-drops. We also don't have any 3-drops. We'll make it work. Scrapgorger on 2, double teachings on 3. Something like that. We will certainly try. But does the Scrapgorger get cut down? Probably. That's not the end of the world. I can deal with that. Teaching, teaching, teaching. Just do all the things. Unless he plays something nasty like a Shelly, and then we can just Spider. Maybe he's missing his 4th land drop and he's pissed off. Because he has a Shelly in hand. So now he's roping me? I don't know. Come on. Show me what you've got. Tapped land. Okay. Blood Tithe Harvester. I think we... could play Scavenger as a 3/3. We can't swing because he'll crew the Bank Buster. Trying to think of what the best thing to do would be. There's a lot of options. I think we just want to wait on the Spider, get out a bunch of teachings, and then we can keep the ones with counters alive and sacrifice one that we don't give counters to. No attacks. That seems reasonable to me. Now we have a shield root to kill. So it's a good thing we didn't use the spider. It is a damn good thing. Skyfisher Spider. Sack the 1/1. Get rid of the Shelly. He'll crew the Bank Buster in response, which is fine. We will exile the Ichor Drinker to incubate. And no attacks. Chandra Hope speaking. Okay. But you are completely out of gas. You could add 2 mana and draw a card. It's probably going to do something greedy. Yeah. Had a feeling. We'll gain 5 life. Let's see. We can either get Trample or we can get Death Touch. I think we're going to grab Death Touch. Off of the Shelly. And we're going to turn you into a creature. And we're just going to swing. Yeah, I'm just going to swing like that. He'll get to eat one of our creatures. We'll kill the Chandra. All's well that ends well.
I'll find another way.
He didn't even block? He must have got cold feet at the end, thought we might have pump. It's kind of hilarious. Another harvester, so we can kill our scavengers now, but he has to lose his harvester to do it. We have such a good board presence otherwise that that's going to be problematic. We'll get going while the going's good, since it's tapped. Exile Chandra. Exile a Braid. Exile... We'll exile a Tyvar. One for you. One for you. One for you. So if he decides to try and kill an Orochi, he's going to have to trade with it. Probably hoping to top deck a cut down here to mitigate the damage. No, he got Duress. Alright, does kill an Orochi. Takes 11. Goes to 9. And we'll play another Teachings. Seems pretty good to me. Grabs a Fable. Alright, we'll put a counter on you, I guess. We'll start with Tyvar. If we manage to get a Scrapgorger, we can also play the Underdog.
Let's pound these metal monstrosities into dust. Your story's not finished yet.
Do that. We'll do that. And we will smash non-creature duress, non-creature land, and we'll buff up our Orochis. So that he can't trade with them with his Goblin Shaman token. And I think we got him. Yep, there we go. See ya. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. We're working hard to get to 2,000 subscribers now because we blew right past 1,000. So make sure you like and subscribe. Also, if you'd like more magic deck techs, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere over there. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.